Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Matt Jacobson. I am the Online Learning Coordinator for the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. I'd like to remind everyone that we are recording today's webinar. As always, recordings will be posted on our YouTube channel within 24 to 48 hours of the end of this event. Search YouTube for LTC Illinois. If you have any questions today, you can type your questions in the chat or the Q&A. If you use the chat, please make sure to switch the blue drop-down button in the chat to everyone so we can all read your questions and benefit from responses. Illinois PD credit is available for your live attendance during the webinar. Evaluations will be emailed to live participants within 24 to 48 hours as well. Today, I am very excited to introduce Jenn Skalitzky from Infinitec, who will be presenting a little bit about how to support student executive functioning while learning online. Jenn, I believe you have control, and I think you can take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to present to you all. So as you all know, the title is Staying Off Snapchat, Technology Tools to Support Executive Function While Learning. And as Matt so kindly just stated, this training is brought to you by Infinitec and also from the Illinois State Board of Education. We have a grant through the Illinois State Board of Education to provide free training across the state. We provide on various topics such as assistive technology and universal design for learning. Now, Infinitec provides assistive technology services to member districts. And if you ever want any further information about Infinitec, just let me know. We have an extensive online classroom for professional development. And as I just mentioned, this training is brought to you by a grant. So we really love to keep track about all the people that we train. So if you have the opportunity, if you could, we'd really appreciate it if you can throw in the county that you work in. That would be lovely. So then we can keep track to make sure we hit our goals. And for the past 10 years that we've had this grant, only 1 year, and that was during the pandemic, did we not deliver in every single county. So that's our goal. And as you're typing in the chat, I should mention we provide webinars like this. We also provide all-day trainings and half-day trainings virtually or face-to-face. So if you're interested, just contact me and I can send you the list of training options. This training, in fact, can be something that's done in a half-day time. I've just condensed it into about an hour. So go ahead and throw that in the chat. And thanks again. I do appreciate that. So this is me. You already all know that my name is Jenn Skalitzky. I'm from Infinitec. I am officially an assistive technology facilitator for Infinitec. I have been at Infinitec for about 15 years. I provide trainings, obviously, in various topics. I also provide assistive technology collaborations in the areas of reading, writing, and executive function. And I also work with membership services. Prior to that, I worked at a special education co-op for 7 years on an assistive technology team. I really love what technology can do for all students. And this is my email address. You are welcome to email me. If you think of a question at a later time, I'm more than happy to answer that for you. Or if you'd like some more information on training, happy to answer that question for you as well. Also, I want to mention, I'm also going to throw the handouts in the chat. Oh, I just saw you want me to move the Zoom toolbar. Don't you love when that and technology gets in the way? I'm actually just going to hide it all. Hopefully now then you can't see that. So here are the links to the handouts. So if you would like to, you can simply go and access it that way. Now, I really encourage you to use the chat. Oh, thanks, Matt. I really encourage you to use the chat. And as you think of questions, to also throw them in there. It's really great to have interactions, especially during a webinar. I know it's kind of hard when we're not face-to-face, but I still like to make the best of it. So another reason I really encourage you to access this handout virtually is that I've embedded a lot of supports. Anytime you see something underlined, it's hyperlinked. So that means that it's going to take you to a website. It may take you to instructions. It also may take you to an instructional video. So it's a really nice way to have information provided to you and not just in a static form of paper. So again, handouts in the chat, and you can write them down here. And also I update things frequently. So you'll also have the latest and greatest information as well. And if I change something, you'll have access right away to the changed version. Today's outcomes, we're going to look at that set framework when selecting technology tools to support executive function. And we're also going to be able to identify features of that technology important to support time management and focus while you're online and learning. And then finally, participants will be able to list 5 technology tools to support time management and engagement while learning online. So before I begin diving into the tools, I really want to talk about what is executive function. I want to lay that foundation so when we go look into the tools, we can really see how these various tools can assist our students. So there's a number of definitions of assistive technology. I chose this one definition by Joyce Cooper-Kahn and Lori Dietzel, and I like it because it encompasses a lot of different areas of executive function. You may also hear me say the term EF. That is short for executive function. So they state executive functions are a set of processes that all have to do with managing oneself and one's resources in order to achieve a goal. And what I like about this definition, it highlights 2 things. It's about managing oneself and your resources available to you. You know, and many of these terms and things that I'm going to discuss today are tools that it's not just for students in special education or struggling students. It's really tools for everyone. So you're going to notice some things too that may help you. So it's all about managing yourself and the resources, right? One example would be our memories are, my memory's failing me on a daily basis. So I use alarms all the time to help me remember things, to help me get things done. So it's not just about my abilities, but what resources do I have in my grasp in order for me to achieve that goal? Now, when I give that example of an alarm, that was just me being on time. However, in school, there's a number of goals you have to achieve. You have to be in class on time. You have to pay attention. You have to complete assignments. You may have to complete really big assignments. There's just an array of things involved in executive function. And when I say array, here's a big laundry list of executive function skills. So there's inhibition, shift, emotional control, initiation, working memory, planning and organization of materials, and finally self-monitoring. Now, when I get called in for an executive function collab, sometimes I just check that box and they say executive function. And I think, gosh, we really have a lot to whittle down with the team because we have to figure out from this laundry list, what is the area that we're focusing on? Sometimes it's one area, sometimes it's multiple areas. And now technology, for the most part, is not going to be able to fix your executive function skills. Technology really falls into that category of the resources of the definition. It's my ability, and then what resources do I have in order to help me achieve my goal? So we're going to use technology to help us achieve our goal and assist us in these different areas. But we really need to be aware of these different areas so we can choose the right tools and the right features to support that. So the first one is inhibition. And perhaps some of you are hungry this afternoon, a delicious picture of sweets there. And inhibition has to do with the ability to stop one's own behavior at the appropriate time. So we may see our students who lack inhibition, they tend to be impulsive, right? They're not thinking things through. They just act impulsively, and sometimes that can end up in negative behavior. Also, executive function has the ability to shift. You have to be able to shift your attention. You have to be able to move freely from one situation to another. And you have to think flexibly in order to respond appropriately to the situation. And I think it's really important too, none of us like change, and sometimes we all have a hard time moving from one task to the other. I mean, even an example for you today, perhaps you were working on something right before you got on this webinar today, and you had to somehow shut down what you were working on and shift and go to something else. Maybe reluctantly, maybe excitedly, I don't know, but you have to shift your attention. Sometimes our kids have a really hard time with shifting in terms of moving from one class to another. They get kind of upset because they didn't finish their assignment, and they now have to close their books, close their computers, and move to the next class. So that can be difficult. Sometimes our students with autism also had difficulty in having flexible thinking and responding appropriately to the situation. If things don't go the way that they typically go, they may get, students with autism may get upset. But then again, that's anyone, right? Change is hard. Also, emotional control is a big one. You know, the ability to modulate emotional responses with rational thoughts. You know, this is a really big factor. And I think this sometimes doesn't come to play that we always think about in terms of executive function. Some of our students, you know, don't have that ability to recognize their emotions, control their emotions. And think about, if you're really upset, can you think clearly? Can you make really good choices? So I'm going to guess your answer was no. So what we have to do is make sure that our students have resources available to them to help them with emotional control if they do get upset, if things do not go the right way. And, you know, we may see this in various forms. We may see this in anger. We may see this in acting out. We may see sometimes even in silliness or laughing. So our emotional control can have a number of responses. Also, initiation. This is a big one. So this is the ability to begin a task or activity and to independently generate ideas, responses, or problem-solving strategies. You know, we often hear that some of our kids, they just can't get started. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to start. They tend to fiddle. They sharpen their pencil 6 times. You know, they pull out a different pen. They seem to be doing everything but the task on hand. So what kind of tools can we give them or strategies to help them with initiation? Here's another one that I struggle with as I'm getting older in my executive function skills: working memory. How many of you ever walk into a room and you forget why you walked into that room? So that's the ability to hold information in the mind to complete a task or tasks. Think about when you tell the students they need to go to their lockers, grab their science book, grab their science folder, their goggles, and anything else they may need for science class. And all the kids go to their lockers. Most kids come back with what they need, but then there's always a small handful that come back with a pencil sharpener. So it's really the idea of being able to hold something in your mind and remember that and to complete that task. So what tips and tricks can we do to help assist with working memory? We often see this as well as a struggling area with our students. It's the ability to manage current and future tasks. And this is true, especially for long-term assignments. It can be really hard when kids tend to leave things for the last minute. They're not getting everything done that they need to get done, and they fall behind. And even in everyday homework assignment tasks, we may see kids fall behind because they're not completing those tasks. Also, the organization of materials. Now, this is an interesting one in our day and age, and pretty self-explanatory. It has the ability to organize materials for work, play, education, and storage. So I'm going to tell a story. It's not my story to tell, but I think it's an important one. And this was a realization I had early in my career. One of my very first couple of years out in the field, there was a presenter named Judy Sweeney, and she's long retired. But what she did was she was a big light tech queen of technology, and I called it light tech strategies. And she was working with a student, and I can't remember, again, memory here. I can't remember if it was a locker or a desk. That part's irrelevant, but we all know what that locker and desk look like, right? It was throwing up papers, it was throwing up folders and everything in the desk. And she was working with that student to get organized. And you know, she said to Jimmy, I'm going to use the name Jimmy. She said, you know, Jimmy, how about we use a color folder for every subject, right? Science is red, reading is green, history is blue, and so forth. And he was like, no, we don't need that. We just need 3 folders. And she thought, well, why do you only need 3 folders? You know, you have more than 3 classes. And Jimmy's response was, well, I need a folder for classes I like. I need a folder for classes I kind of like. And then I need a folder for classes I don't like at all. So in Jimmy's mind, that's how his organization worked, right? And those materials worked. So what we need to realize from that story is that we need to realize that our students should have an integral part of their organization, tips and tricks and strategies to help them organize their world. I think oftentimes we just tell kids what to do when we don't ask their input, as I think that's a really crucial factor for success for a lot of areas of school. Now, that story also reminds me of something else, and we're going to touch upon it later today. And it's the concept that, back in the day, we used to, once a week have our kids clean out their desks and lockers, right? And that really helped those kids that struggled with organization. But what about today? Where are all of our kids' materials now? Think about it, right? A lot of their papers that we used to have them organized once a week, are now in their Google Drive. So and we don't see it, right? It's hidden, it's all in the cloud. So could you imagine what those Google Drive folders look like? So I'll give you just a couple tips and tricks. What I think needs to happen is that once a week, much like we used to organize our desks and our lockers, we need to get in there and teach our kids how to organize their Google Drive. And that's true for me as well. Another one is self-monitoring. And that's the ability to monitor one's own performance against expectations. So am I moving along at the pace I'd like to be moving along in terms of time? Am I performing a really good quality of work in terms of what I should be doing? So I know what's expected of me. I can self-monitor myself and keep going from there. So I'm going to take just a second here in our moment or two, and I'd like to know, what productivity tools do you use to support executive function? So I'm going to give you a moment. Go ahead and type in that chat. And I'm going to open up my bar. All right. Ashley's got a Google Keep. Anyone else use any tools for productivity? Alarms, reminders. Google Tasks, Google Calendar are lifesavers. I would agree. As you type in their lifesavers, I always think about technology. I don't know if it's helped my executive function skills or made it worse. Google Calendar. And when I say that, I'm meaning I'm so reliant on technology now. Great. So a lot of you are typing different things in the chat, and that's true. And it goes back to that story I told about the student that only needed 3 folders. We all use various tools to help our executive function and to be productive. So what that tells us, what we're using and what we all should be using, is the toolbox approach. And the toolbox approach is a great way to think about technology to support reading, writing, executive function, communication, anything. And we all use different tools at different times. You can't see my desk right now, but I have Post-it notes. I have long legal pad of notes to take notes on. I also have my phone with some alarms and some reminders to go off. I have a number of tools. So you can see we use different things for different tools for different tasks. And that's what we want to encourage our students to do. We want to educate our students on that toolbox approach. Think of how you are productive, and we need to teach those same things to our students. I think sometimes just by osmosis, we think that they're going to catch up on it. Some kids do, but some kids certainly don't. So we do need that direct teaching. An example, one day we talk about the toolbox approach and executive function skills. So that brings me to, who should use technology to support executive function? So I always have to look at technology through a lens. I don't just pick technology because it's cool. I look at it either through a universal design for learning lens or an assistive technology lens. Now, a certain piece of assistive technology, such as text-to-speech, I'm going to use that example with technology that's used to read text back to online. Now, for me, that's just a universal design tool that I really benefit from. I love to listen to my emails read to me, my text messages read to me. I listen to audiobooks. So that's a great universal design for learning tool for me. However, I work with some students who have dyslexia, and they need text to speech to have all those things I just mentioned also read back to them. But because they have a disability, it turns into assistive technology. So I look at it through these two lenses. So what that really tells us is that everyone's going to need these tools to support themselves and executive function skills. And I'm going to guess that you're going to take away some tools that you could use today as well. And there are so many more. And I always have a hard time cutting out tools. I actually cut some out, but then I ended up adding more because I always think, there may be this student that could benefit that someone's attending. So there may be some that are more pertinent than others to you, but you're definitely going to see a whole lot today. And I did mention that term universal design for learning. So executive function really plays a role in all these three categories. And we do trainings on UDL, and we definitely do trainings with technology to support UDL. But in real quickly, what UDL is it has three main components. So we want to provide multiple means of engagement. We want to create those purposeful and motivated learners. And that definitely plays a role in terms of executive function skills. If you're not engaged, you can't learn. Also, multiple means of representation is the second one. We want to create resourceful, knowledgeable learners. And in terms for some of our kids, they really benefit from, for example, look at that example I just gave. Maybe their engagement will increase when I have multiple means of representation, when I have that audiobook, when I have that text being read out loud. And because I've used multiple formats for representation, a greater transfer of information can occur. And then the final one is multiple means of action and expression. And I really call that category the show, right? How can we let kids demonstrate what they know? Maybe some kids create slideshows, some kids create a paper, some kids use poster boards, some kids use all the crafts in the world. But we want to create strategic goal-directed learners. So our executive function skills overlap and play an important role in all of these categories. Now, when I'm looking at it through an assistive technology lens, I'm going to be a little more specific. And this is kind of like probably an hour presentation I'm putting in one slide, but it's the SET framework. But the nice thing about the SET framework, it is simple. It stands for student. I'm going to look at their abilities, their difficulties that they're having, the environment that the student is currently in. Are they at home? Are they at school? Are they using iPads? Are they using Chromebooks? Do they have access to both? Are people techie in their environment? Are they technophobes in their environment? What's the physical arrangement of the environment? What is the task? And I'm really going to look specifically at the task. And I'm going to think of that big laundry list that I mentioned in the beginning to help me specifically narrow it down. Because if we just pick a tool for the sake of picking a tool, it often fails. So we want to really match it to the student, the environment, the task. And then finally, we pick the tool and then we decide the features of the tool. So that's how I look at technology to support students, whether it's from a universal design lens or from an assistive technology, and I use the same SET framework. Now, if you want to break it down earlier, if any of my special ed peeps are online, this is a really excellent resource, and it was developed by Dan Cochran, and he used to be an assistive technology facilitator in the Western Burbs, and now he is at the University of Illinois, Chicago. So I gave you the hyperlink to this resource, and he broke down the task demands in reading, writing, math, and organization. Now, I don't mean to make you dizzy, but I just want to show you the different areas real quick, that there's multiple ones. But how he broke it down is he looked at the very specific task demands, and he looked at the task demands of the effective demand. So let's talk about engaging in this task, the physical demand of organization, the sensory demand of organization, the cognitive demand, and the attentional demand of organization. And then the middle column is the student's performance. And of course, this would be different for every single student. And then if there are any assistive technology features, then you could look in the green column. So this is a really helpful tool. I use this a lot when I'm looking at assistive technology, whether it's for reading, writing, or organization, because sometimes people have a really hard time narrowing down the task demands. So you could say, does Susie have an easy time with the task demand of physical? Yes, she doesn't have any physical demands of, keeping track of papers or writing or filling in papers. However, the cognitive demand is really hard from her because she has ADHD. So this is a really helpful thing to use for yourself as a tool, but then also to explain to others, because sometimes people just think kind of very globally. And that's okay, but when we really need to narrow down that task, it's not. So this is a great resource. I really highly recommend you to use that if you're looking for assistive technology. And then I'm going to, I have a couple slides here that I kind of call my teacher/mom slides. This first one is engage. Now think about your executive function skills when you're really into something. If you're really engaged in this training, you're going to watch it. You're going to be on the edge of your seats, just waiting to see what I'm going to say next. If you're not so interested, you may be picking up your phone, looking on Facebook right now. So hopefully I'm keeping you engaged. So think of that too. A really engaging assignment is also going to help hold their attention and increase their executive function skills. Now that second picture there is empower. I really think we have to empower our students. We have to talk to them. We have to get their input and know that their input is important. And we also have to empower them how to use these tools. And this phrase drives me bonkers. How many of you all have heard, oh, kids are so good at technology these days? So I'm going to ask you to type in the chat, what kind of technology are kids good at? I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking, so I'm going to give a moment here. What kind of technology do you think kids are good at? Games. Anyone else? TikTok videos, right? Watching YouTube passively. I love it. You guys hit the nail on the head. Yeah, so we always hear that phrase, kids are great at technology. Yes, they are excellent at gaming. They're great at Snapchat, and this title should be TikTok, Snapchat's old news. TikTok and YouTube videos passively. They're not good at being like, oh, this Chrome app and extension is so helpful. I'm going to use this. So I think we have to explicitly teach these executive function tools and teach them how to fill their toolbox with the appropriate tools. And I think it's an ongoing thing. Now, they may pick up on it quicker, but they're not going to, pick up on how to color code their folders in Google Drive. So with that being said, let's remember that too, that we have to teach them explicitly. And this is my official mom slide. That one was more of a teacher slide. This is more of a mom slide. I want you to think of your own executive function skills. How do you feel when you're really calm, when you're not upset? Let's go back to that emotional control. We can achieve this through meditation. We can also achieve this through just by simply eating healthy. How do you all feel after a McDonald's number 2 value meal, right? That's 2 cheeseburgers, a large fry, and a large Coke, versus a nice salad for lunch or a healthy snack like peanut butter, apples, and, something along the lines like that, and a water. You're going to feel more alert. You're going to feel more energized. There's a number of research out there. I'm not going to get into it, that also talks about the value of movement and brain function and engagement. So let's not forget that. And it's so hard. Our kids are sitting so much. We live in Chicago. We live in Illinois, and it's cold. But how can we get our kids moving and going? Because these are also things that are going to affect our executive function. Okay. Any thoughts before I dive into the tools? Want to share anything? Thanks, Matt. Anyone else want to share? Okay, and again, I encourage you, no need to use your working memory. If you want to have a thought or a question, just throw that in the chat. All right, let me hide my Zoom controls. All right. Okay, so let's dive in. I'm going to go pretty quickly through these tools, tips, and tricks, and that's for a number of reasons. One, I didn't want to take anything out because I always say, what happens if you have this kid or that kid? And two, there's a there are so many great resources out there to have you dive deeper into the function of these tools or how to explicitly teach you how to do it. If I wanted to dive deep into a tool, I could probably only show you 2 or 3 things. So what I'm doing is kind of giving you a little taste test. Think of like when you test drive a car, right? You can't test out every single feature in 5 minutes, but you just kind of get an idea if you like it or not. So all these tools, we're just going to do a little taste test, taste drive, and you could dive deeper into them. And you can dive deeper by going to the vendor's website. You can dive deeper by going to YouTube. That's where I learn how to do things these days. The older I get, I want someone to explain it to me, and then I go in and play. The old me, I used to just fiddle until I figured it all out. Now I'm like, just show me. YouTube's great for that. They have videos every length to help you. So know that you can dive deeper and use multiple means of representation in your quest. I do provide a lot of resources if you do want to dive deeper on your own. So the first thing I want to talk about is self-regulation. Now, I'm going to talk about it from the standpoint of some free tools that are out there. I don't want you to forget about YouTube. YouTube, I just mentioned, can be a great instructional tool, but it can also be really great for there's some guided meditation. And I don't meditate a lot, but I do meditate occasionally. And I don't know why I don't do it more, because I always feel very calm and focused when I'm done. And there's some wonderful free guided meditation for students that you can find on YouTube. Use that. Also, sometimes just spa music in the background can be very calming for students. I know many classes that just listen to that music in the background to kind of keep kids mellowed out. Also, yoga. I mentioned that movement is so good for kids. Sometimes we get those really revved up movements like running sprints or running around. It just kind of gets us going too much. But yoga gives us that benefit of movement that can increase our attention and our alertness without getting us too revved up. Now, I also have that picture on the right-hand side, and that's called the zones of regulation. Now, the zones of regulation is an amazing program, and I'm not even going to do it justice. I just want to give you a little tasting of what it is. So zones of regulation are really used for students who have disabilities, especially emotional and some behavior disabilities, or I shouldn't even say that. It's used for all students to help identify their emotions. It's a systematic cognitive behavioral approach, and it's used to teach all students to identify their feelings and ways that they can self-regulate their feelings. So it's divided into 4 areas. It's the blue, green, yellow, and red zones. And, they kind of associate the different zones with, you can see the different signs. The blue is kind of like, oh, you're lethargical, it's your rest, you're bored, you're tired. So what can we do if we're bored, we're tired? Maybe we do some yoga, maybe we take a walk. The go zone is green, you're good to go. You're ready to learn, you're right where you want to be, that's your optimal zone. Your slow is, kind of warning, right? It's where you might be a little agitated, you might be upset, you're feeling silly. So what can I do to bring me back to that go zone? Maybe, again, a walk might help, or some meditation music might help, or talking to someone might help. And then that red zone is just the beyond zone, when you're angry, when you're mad, you're yelling. So some of our students who don't have the ability to understand and recognize their emotions, this is a really helpful program. There's all-day trainings on this. There's curriculums on this. There's a ton of supplemental materials. Definitely check that out if you work with students who do struggle to recognize their emotions and their behavior, and then strategies to fix that. So let's jump into task management and time. This first resource I shared, I always try to stick with free stuff, came from Executive Function Tool site website. And this is the website here. I hyperlinked it for you. And I don't want to make you dizzy, but this is by Karen Janowski. She has some excellent executive function skills. She has a number of resources for self-regulation. So she talks about some free apps that you can download, organization and time management. She has a whole lot more than I listed. There is some crossover. Of course, sometimes with the free stuff, we have to worry about SAPA. There's study skills and some nice videos that go along with it. But one thing I borrowed from this resource, I'm always a very honest thief, is something that she provided. It's a task analysis and time estimation sheet. One thing that our students and adults have a hard time with is how long a task is actually going to take you. Now, I always tell my kids and try to remind myself, things always take longer than you think. So you clearly can't do this for every task, but it's a really easy sheet to use for a lot of tasks, especially if you want to work on that skill of teaching time estimation. So you write out the tasks that you need to do. And then before the task starts, you say, okay, how long do you think this is going to take me to complete this task, right? And you break it down and you do all the times for the different parts of the task. And then at the end, you can evaluate and see how long things really did take you. So it's a nice way to have a visual of time estimation and some things to talk about and to go over. So that's a really nice, it can be used for a number of things. The next one is our iOS tips and tricks. Now, I often don't add a lot of iOS tips and tricks, but then I started to add them back in because the good news, bad news is that a lot of our kids have phones, right? And they tend to be iPhones, although a lot of these features are also on Android as well. And they also will be doing work at home, so we could teach them how to use their phones as an executive function, right? It's part of their resources. And when I had you all type into your chat box, you often just a few of you mentioned that you use features on your phones. So we're going to take a quick dive into here. The first one, again, let's use what we already have. And I do believe a couple people threw this in the chat. On iOS phones, if you look at the picture on the left, there are built-in reminders app, and then you can have different lists. So you can have a home list, and you can have a number of things within there. And the nice thing about the iOS is you can then set a little alert to go off at that specific time, or you can also set that alert to go off the second you get home as a reminder. So it also has a geographic kind of alert system. Now, another app that is also a Google Chrome extension, and we're going to probably touch upon it 3 times today. There is a great app and extension called Google Keep, and I know some of you use it. I would love it if you threw in the chat how you all use Google Keep, because there's a number of ways to do this. And we could probably just do a webinar all on the different ways to use Google Keep. It's a great tool. You can be simple or you can be complex. But one of the main reasons I like it is because of what I just mentioned. It's an app and extension. So I have it on my phone. You probably can't see me, I'm waving the phone. And I also have it on my Chrome browser. So, and again, because it's cloud-based, they talk to each other. So I know that they're going to sync. I know it's going to go well. So you can also create to-do lists on here. So when we get to the Chrome tips and tricks, I'll show you what that looks like. But I also wanted to let you know another wonderful feature is that it also syncs with your phone through the cloud. And anything you put on your phone will be on the browser and vice versa. Again, back to your phone are the timer alarms, and this is what you all put in the chat. Now, the first one here are timers, and I put a link for your iPhone tips and tricks, and then Android if you have an Android. Now, many of us set timers, right? They help keep us on task. It's a really great tip for a kid too. Some students have difficulty understanding how much time is left, so you can simply look at a time. Now, the thing that I like about the iPhone timer, and I have it on this visual here, is that it shows the passage of time. Time is a very abstract thing. So the fact that this free alarm will make it visual can also be really helpful for how much time that they have left. So that's really helpful. And then of course you can pick the sound that you want. Now, another little tip is that if you pick when the timer ends, and of course you click on here and there's all the different sounds, the very bottom, there's also one that says stop playing. So then it will go to the lock screen. So that's another nice way to signify to the student if they're playing games like, oh, you're done. But I also wanted to show you how to set an alarm. And I provided those supports as well. Now, again, you all use these when you typed into the chat. Let's teach our students how to use these alarms. And another wonderful tip about using an alarm, remind your students, and because this is something that frequently happens to me, I set multiple alarms and I don't label them. So you have alarms going off without a label, which is not helpful if you don't remember why you set the alarm in the first place. So little tips like that can also be helpful for your students. So think of things you're using and how can we transfer them over to the tools for our students. Now, this is an oldie but a goodie. Some of you may be like, how can an app be an oldie? Because some of you teachers out there may have had this timer on your desk, right? The hard version of this, the original version, was a timer that sat on a desk that you used to crank. And again, I like this because it shows that visual passage of time. And the nice thing about the iPad version, which you can see I have the visual here, is that you can also kind of set it up to be a mini schedule. So these could be timers for all the different classes, and then you have the main timer that's going on for the class that you're in. So some kids really benefit from a schedule for a number of reasons. And so then this can replicate a schedule as well as have a built-in timer. So, lots of different versions. If you want to just use the built-in, or if you want to go out and get another one, you can. Now, I want to talk about a strategy from Sarah Ward, and it's called Get Ready, Do, Done. And there's a number of wonderful YouTube videos that actually have Sarah talking about it. There's also a number of Pinterest boards, a number of Teachers Pay Teachers, or just search Sarah Ward, and you can see some great examples. But I'm going to explain it to you simply. Is Sarah often talks about the start with the done, right? If we do things, we often do start with the done. So we want to start at the done and then work our way backwards. So if we had to do an assignment on the Civil War generals, we're going to either have a snapshot of what we want it to look like, or a hand-drawn sketch of what we want it to look like. So we know what we want to look like when it gets there. I mean, think about a recipe, right? When we have a recipe, we have that visual. We want it to look like that. We're starting with the end in mind. Then we move to our do. So what is it that we need to do to get it done? Well, we need to gather materials. We need to use research. We need to find 10 facts. We need, number 4, the effect on the economy, that we need to type the info, make sure it's neatly and creative. We need photos, practice and present. But what do we need to do to get ready? Well, we need computer. We need our library books. I need to call Uncle Tom. I need a printer, paper, and construction, paper, glue, scissors, and trifold board. So what's helpful for this is that it visually maps out how you complete a task. And it also incorporates the lists, right? How many times do we create lists for our kids? But where do these lists come from? Well, they magically, of course, come from us, but this actually helps the students come up with the ideas themselves, change their mindset to help to come to be organized. Now, that's a very simplistic definition of Get Ready, Do, Done. But the reason I'm sharing this with you is because there's 2 tools I'm going to show you. And this is the first one. Actually, I cut out the Chrome version, but there are 2 tools I'm going to reference. I forgot I did that. So this first one I'm going to reference is an iPad. It's called the 360 Thinking Time Tracker, and it's broken up into that Get Ready, Do, Done, right? So you plug it in. So the done at 12:20, I want to be done. And what does done mean? Well, in this case, I have to type it out. I'm going to put my homework in the folder. I'm going to put my folder in my book bag, and then I'm going to clean up my materials, right? All those things means that it's done. Maybe the done includes uploading it to Google Drive, so you have to think of all those tasks. Then the do is the green part. I need to start the problems at 11:50. And then if you notice on the right, there's also a midpoint goal. And that midpoint goal is at 12:05. And I have 10 problems that I have to do. And then what do I need to do to get ready? Well, I need my pencil, my folder, my calculator. Again, things take longer than you think. You forget sometimes about the get ready, right? How long does it take some kids to find a pencil, folder, and calculator? I mean, that could be 20 minutes alone. And then if you're at home doing homework, this could take just as long as well. So understanding how much time you really have and how much time you should be doing can help keep you focused. Now, another strategy that she, before she developed the app, she used to just take the clock in the classroom. And if it was a glass clock, she would use dry erase marker and then color it in the Get Ready, Do, Done. So there's 2 versions. The third version is there is a Chrome extension that also mirrors this Get Ready, Do, Done with the timer. But I told you I tried to cut down on things. I figured I could just tell you about it. And it's free. The app is not free, but the extension is. Now, the last couple of things on your phone, this is new in iOS 15, so you have to make sure you updated it at least to 15 to have this feature. It's called focus mode. And again, you're going to have to teach your students how to do it. You pick the categories when you want to focus. I want to focus on some personal time where I don't want to be disturbed. I want to focus on sleep, or I want to focus on work. So for each of these categories, and of course you can do your custom, it could be homework, it could be school time, you add how you want to either be not disturbed at all or only allowed notifications by certain people. So maybe only mom and dad are there or grandma is there. And you want to have focus mode on, and only certain apps are available. And you can set that timer for that or set a schedule so it automatically happens every day. Or of course you can have it at a certain time or certain location. So it's a really nice feature to help with that. So you can stay off of TikTok and not have that open, as that would be one of your do not disturb. Now the students, you'd have to empower them to go on to turn this on and to set them up. This one, you can sit back, read your book, and not worry. Now, I know you don't have access to your kids' phones that are in the classroom, your students. However, if you ever do a family night, or maybe you want to share this at the beginning of the year with the students, the parents that you work with, you as a parent can set up the controls on your children's phone. You can limit screen time. Here are the tips and tricks for the parental controls for your iPhone, and then here's Android. On the iPhone, you can control the screen time. So you could say what you want to do. Do you want to set a downtime? So apps are off from 8 p.m. till 8 a.m. Or maybe they have it on, but they only get 2 hours of TikTok or 1 hour of Snapchat. And you can set those limits. So once they're done, they're done. And then you could always look like that, knowing that they're not on their phones. This they cannot turn off unless they figure out the password. So make it a good one. Okay, any thoughts? Go ahead and type in the chat. Oh, I'm seeing some chat now. Yeah, family education nights, right? You know what, Ashley, you make a good point. Sometimes there are students who fixate on timers. So if they do focus on timers, then maybe that's not a good idea for them, or explain to them the purpose of the timer. And the timer isn't to make you feel rushed, but just to kind of help you. But again, if it's causing too much anxiety, then don't use the timer. Every tool is not for every student, but sometimes a little bit of education can go a long way too. But I've definitely had, some students who just get too fixated on that timer as well. But I do notice that a lot of them, it does help a lot. Because if you think about it, it's a life skill. We're kind of teaching life skills with alarms and timers. But yeah, Ashley, you're right. There's always that one or two. But keep throwing in any chat or thoughts that you have. I welcome them. All right, I'm going to hide my controls, but again, throw them in there. Okay. All right, now let's jump to Chrome browser tips and tricks. Okay, so I referenced this earlier is when I talked about the desk that was throwing up papers and folders. So what we need to do is work with our students on organizing their Google Drive, right? You can't focus and work online if you can't find the right things to focus in your materials. So I'm just going to give you a real quick tip and trick about your Google Drive, and it takes about 2 seconds. So here in my drive, I have a couple folders that are kind of like what kids would have. You have your math folder, your social studies folder, your science folder, and then you kind of have some of mine here. So all I'm going to do is right click on my math folder, and I go down here and I can change colors. And that's all I did. So let the kids pick their colors, or if you want to pick it for the entire room, you certainly can as well. Now, the other thing that I did is I added an icon. Now you're wondering, how did I add an icon? Well, if you look at your slides, I gave you this website. It's Emojipedia, and it's a free website. You don't have to log in, so it's SAPA okay. And it will also tell you what they mean, which can be helpful if you're not hip like me. But let's say I want to add a new emoji for math. I simply type math. And this is something you can do at the end of the year. Maybe something's a little more complicated, so I want divide. I can click on the divide. And it gives you the meaning. And then you just simply click copy. and it's copied. And then I go to my Google Drive. And when I'm going to right click again, remember before I changed the color, but now I want to do is I want to rename it. And I'm going to delete it. It's just emoji. So I can do Control V or right click and paste. And there's my division. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be good for kids who are non-readers. It may help with a little symbol, but it is easier to find sometimes something with a symbol than just words by itself. But that can help with organization. But again, teaching kids how to organize their drive can really really helpful in terms of time. So even using folders within folders. So if you have a science project, maybe you're going to make multiple folders. You're going to have your research folder for that, right? And I spelled that wrong, but that's okay. Then I'm going to have a new folder for my photos, right? So teaching kids how to organize themselves can be really helpful too. And then cleaning up that big mess that's on the bottom of all those untitled documents, right? We love the idea that Google automatically saves for us, but what does it do? It gives us a lot of documents hanging out in the world being messy. So teach your kids how to clean that up, and perhaps we have to give time to our kids to clean it up. So I wanted to give those quick tips and tricks for help organizing that. Here's another tip and trick in the Chrome browser that can help with organization of information. Now, if you're like me, you work with a lot of tabs open, and a lot of our students, if they're doing a research project, may have multiple tabs open at the same time. And for those students who struggle, one, with organizing the information when they're doing a research project, or two, have a hard time shifting. So we may say, social studies class is now over. We need to close up our materials and move on to English, right? They may panic or like, oh my gosh, I have all these tabs open. I'm going to lose all this work. And of course, you can go in and bookmark one by one, and that's going to take forever. And then you just kind of end up with this big laundry list of bookmarks, right? So I'm going to show you how to do this. I still use one tab, but that's not SOPA compliant. So I said, oh gosh, I wish there was a way we can find something similar. I did a little bit of research and I found this. So it's a way of chunking bookmark tabs together. So for example, I'm going to give you a teacher example, and then I'm going to give you a student example. Now, as a teacher example, you may have all these tabs open because you want to go in and teach this course, or this class, but you have to change rooms really quick, and you only have 5 minutes to set up, much like the kids have 5 minutes to change classes. So let's say you open up all your tabs that you want to teach ahead of time. Now I'm going to look at my arrow, please, which is in the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to right click. When I right click, there's a drop down. And I'm going to scroll down to bookmark all tabs. Now, when I bookmark all tabs, the same thing kind of happens. So this may be, I'm just going to say EF because that's what I'm going to call it. And I'm going to name it EF, and I'm going to click save. Now, if I want to go and go to a new browser, and I don't want to go to a browser, and I want to go back to my bookmarks. Now, if I scroll down at the bottom, there's now an EF folder, and look, it saved all of my bookmarks. So now I can go in and I'm going to right click again, that gray area to the right of EF. And now I'm going to say, open all 11. And I can open them in a new Cognito window just so we can kind of see all 11. And then I can close it out. So it's that quick. Now that's the teacher example. And now, as you can guess, students had the same thing, right? I gave that example of transferring into a new class, and all of a sudden you're like, shoot, I got to save everything quickly. So I saved good old honest Abe, a whole bunch of research on Abraham Lincoln. So if I want to open all of these when I'm at home or study hall or resource time, I'm going to right click next to Abe and I'm going to say open all 13. And now all 13 open. So that's a really helpful tip and trick for kind of staying organized with tabs. Now, Jen has a million tabs open. The next one I want to show you is, some of you use this already, is our Google Tasks and Google Calendar. And again, just some really quick tips and tricks. Now, Google Tasks and Google Calendar are already built into your Chrome. It's free. It's just something that's there. You don't even have to add it. But I am going to use a different user because I'm trying to functionally use it myself, and you don't need to see all of my stuff I have to do. So I'm going to first show you Google Tasks. Now, I'm going to draw your attention to the right side, to this bar. You see that's a light bulb. That's actually Google Keep. There's Tasks, there's Contacts, and there's Maps. So I'm going to click on Tasks, and Tasks is exactly that. It's just little to-do lists. So if you see this drop down, you'll notice I created English, math, science, social studies to do at home, science, language, arts, gym class. I want to create a new list. I certainly can create a new list, and I'm going to call it recipe just to keep it off topic of school. That's my coworker calling me. So I'm going to say recipe, and that's done. But you'll notice I could type in, and right now under my English task, I'm just toggling and clicking on it to find it. I have read chapter 5 and annotate, and there's a time for that as well. And if I want to add a task, I'm simply just for my English, I'm going to say add task, and I'm going to say find topic, find famous person to write about, right? And then I can add details if I wanted to add more information. Someone who is an author, and I can add a date and time. So I'm going to say by this time I need to do this. I could set a time. I want this to go off at 10:30. I could repeat it if I want or not. It's up to me until I get it done. And there it is. And you can notice it added a reminder every single day to find it. Now you'll notice it doesn't tell me what it is until I click on it. I clicked on that little, finger to remind you to do something. So, but it tells me it's in my tasks. It tells me that I need to check my assignment notebook. So again, it's not going to exactly tell me that, but I know I need to click on it to find out what it is. But it's nice that you add it on your task list. And if you add a date, it's automatically going to add it to your Google Calendar. So you'll get that little alert. So that's a really nice thing. And again, you can have multiple task lists. Then if, again, a date is there, it will add to your calendar. The other nice thing too is that the other quick tip I wanted to give you is that if I'm in any screen, you'll notice on the right-hand side, I have my Google Keep, my tasks, my contacts, and so forth. So in any of my Google products, that's going to appear there. Now, the other thing I want to show you, I combined a slide. I said I wanted to show you tasks. I want to show you a quick calendar reminder. Now, you all probably use Google Calendar. I'm not going to show you how to use Google Calendar, but one tip I want to remind you about is really nifty. So this is something I added to my calendar. I have to start slides for the group project, and I have to do this on January 25th at 5:30. So I have different options for reminders. I can have an email notification, or I can have just a regular little alarm go off and a little note there. I can also color code things. So think of those little things that you do then when you're creating something in a Google Calendar, how you want to display that to make sure that one, they can remember what notifications best, the time frame, right? We always want that timer or that reminder to go off. So if I have to get ready to do a training, I'm not going to have that alarm go off right at 3 o'clock. I'm sorry, at 3:30. Like for today, I'm going to have it go off at 3. I want to open all my tabs. I want to run through the presentation. I want to make sure that my audio is working. So that's an executive function skill too, right? I'm not going to have it set right for 3:30. I'm going to have it set for 3. So we always need to set time to prepare ourselves. So that's a little tip with that. Again, I told you I'm moving quick here. Now the next slide, and I wrote it down, so I'm not going to bop back and forth. I just wanted to reference that, is Google Keep. Google Keep was something that I told you that works well on your phone, and that it also works well as an extension and as an app. It's a little bit of everything. So Google Keep is a great note keeping tool. And if you notice on the left-hand side, there's a number of words, and those are labels. So think of a label like a file folder. So I have notes in my English class. I have notes on my Abraham Lincoln project. I have notes on how to be an inclusive content course creator. So you can see that I have notes on the Olympics. So you can see this. Now, if I just click on the note tabs, I have a big laundry list of all of my notes, right? But I have my homework in science pinned. I want that to always appear first right now because that's really important. So I can pin that. I can also have little reminders that go off as well. And that's going to be, the alert's going to go off on my computer as well as my phone. So how do I do this? I just click take note and I'm going to say homework for Monday, right? So here's my note, read chapter 3, worksheet, etc., etc., right? I could add little reminders. I can pick a date and time that I want my reminder to go off. So I want it to go off at 8 p.m. So later today. I could also pick a different time too. I don't certainly have to pick 8 p.m. I could also have it go off next week, tomorrow, so forth. I can also have it go off in terms of a place. So if I want it to go off as I enter my home, I can put my home address in there or my work address in there, and then that reminder will go off for there. So that's a really nice thing too. I can also color code. I could collaborate. So I could share this note with my students. I could also color code it. I can add my own image. So if I'm doing that get ready, do done model, I can certainly add an image to there. And then there's other tasks that we can do. I can add a checkbox. I can add a drawing. I can add a label. And so forth. So I can save it that way. Great way to take notes and to put that in there. So that's a really quick overview of Google Keep. I gave you a link in your handouts how you can do that, but I wanted to show you how to set a note as a reminder. Okay. Let me hop back to my other browser. And here is that link to that Google Keep. I think it's only like an 8 or 11-minute video. It goes a little more in depth than I did. And again, if you want a 2-minute video, go to YouTube. If you want a half-hour video, go to YouTube. It's all there. So now I want to talk about organization for writing. I know we're a few minutes over, so if you have to go, don't worry. This is all recorded. We got a couple minutes late start, and I get ambitious when I show tools. So it's a little bit of both. But these are quick resources. Now, this one slide here, I won't go too deep into because it's pretty self-explanatory. The first 3 resources are free. Yes, we love free graphic organizers for Google. So you name it, look at the left-hand side, all the different graphic organizers they have. So check that out and share that with teachers. Now, these bottom 3 are free graphic organizers that you can do electronically. I had some examples of Padlet, but I'm going to skip it. I love Padlet. It could be a great teacher tool or student tool, really engaging, good for all ages. It's really about the content that you put in there. And it has a lot of great features. So check out Padlet when you have more time. The next one I want to talk about in terms of writing is voice typing. Google has built-in voice typing. This can be really helpful for students that struggle with spelling, that can struggle with getting ideas generated and just getting started, right? Just throw your ideas out there. We can organize them later. Those kids just may have a daunting task of thinking they have to do organization and all of that all at once. This resource I'm giving you here is speech recognition for AT for writing. Now, I know it says assistive technology, but if any of you have ever used your voice for using speech recognition or speech to text or voice typing, you know that it can be hard, that you also have to learn how to do it. This guide, it's a free guide and it's really quick, down and dirty. I think it's good for assistive technology. I think it's good for all students to learn how to use speech recognition for writing. It's not very formal at all. Now, there's a number of devices. Every single device out there has voice typing or speech recognition or speech to text. So what I did on this slide was, I don't know what tools you're using, so I just put them all in there. Everything is hyperlinked based on your device. So if you want to know how to use that device for voice typing, you just click away. Now, this next one is a great example, and there's a number of tools out there that do that. We still use a lot of worksheets and instruction. So this is Orbit. Note, there's a free side and paid side. I'm going to show you the free side. Because we use worksheets with so many of our students, they have a hard time handwriting. So this is one way that you can annotate on a PDF for those kiddos that struggle. So I can open up a PDF from my computer. I can open up from Google Drive. I'm going to open up a quick worksheet. And it's not opening. Let's just refresh the screen real quick. It worked before I did the webinar. There we go. And I'm going to open up my worksheet. And now this is a PDF, and it has a really simple toolbar that's going to open up here. So if I want, I can just go ahead and have it, the bonus. Now here's the bonus. I'm going to show you how to write, but I'm also going to let you know the bonus of this tool is it's going to read the worksheet out loud.
Copyright 2014.
Let's stop that. I want it to read up here.
Commonly confused words. Affect versus effect.
Right. So that's free. That's built in, peeps. So then if I wanted to, I can also just click the T and then annotate and start typing. It's take a time. I'm not going to, but no, that's a really great tool. Now I want to show you how you can use Google Keep for writing. This is really nice. I know I keep going back to Google Keep, but it has so many functions of it. I want to show you how to do that. So I'm going to go and do my research on Abraham Lincoln. And let's say I want to grab this information that's on this website. I'm going to go to text. And I want to grab the text about Honest Abe. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my extension, which is, I just selected the text. I'm going to go up to my extension in Google Keep, click on it. And then what it did was it took what I highlighted. It gives me the website. And then I could put it up, it defaulted to Abraham Lincoln, but no, I can put it in any of those labels or those categories. But I want to keep Abraham Lincoln, and it's saved. So it's perfect. Now I can go back to Google Keep. I'm going to refresh so it's there. Now if I go to my Abraham Lincoln project, I have all of those little things that I've used for gathering information on Google Keep. Now, the nice thing is then when I'm ready to start writing, I can right click on these three little dots and I could say copy to Google Docs. So then it's going to create a brand new Google Doc with the website and I think I just lost my audio there. Oh, good. No, I didn't. Okay. So that's Google Keep for writing. Let me go to my other user. Insert learning for helping keeping kids engaged. And again, that process of going from reading an article to writing about an article, reading an article or answering questions, it keeps them all in one tab together. There's a free side and paid side. So here's an example where I went to a website and this is Time for Kids, and they had to read about a roller coaster. And here's the extension that I have up. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the kids read this article, right? But I've inserted some supports for learning, but also some supports so they can just write right in here and they don't have to bop back and forth between other sites. So one example, if you notice, this is about my cool job, a roller coaster. So here's this dude writing about his job. And he talks about how he got involved in loving roller coasters because he loves the corkscrew roller coaster. Well, not all kids know what a corkscrew roller coaster is. So I inserted a video here, and then the kids can watch a video on a corkscrew roller coaster. I've also inserted questions. So again, they don't have to go outside of this document to write about it. I can insert a sticky note. I can insert, like I said, a question. Wherever you want to insert a question. So if I want to insert a question here, I certainly can do that. So it's really great that you can embed these supports right in the article. Now, the last tool I want to show you, some of you may use, is something called Edpuzzle. And Edpuzzle takes videos. This could be a great teacher tool or student tool, and it embeds writing inside the video. Now, you can create your own. You can be an honest thief and steal others. But the nice thing is, like I said, it keeps them on the same screen. They don't have to go to another browser. and watch that video and then answer questions. It really can help with engagement and help with executive function skills of staying on task. And they also have some nice accessibility features built in as well. So that's a little taster. I know we're running low on time, so I'm just going to give you a snapshot of these tools. And I do notice there's some things in the questions in the chat, so I'm going to hop in there. Matt says he loves Edpuzzle. I know. It's so sad that I can't go deep into that. Thanks, Matt. And if you want to learn more about Google Calendar, definitely touch base and check out their website. That it's there. All right, type in any thoughts that you have. I have some final thoughts. Now, I'm giving you the 4 competencies of assistive technology, but I think this is true for teaching any kids technology. And this goes back to that idea that our kids are really good at gaming and TikTok and Snapchat. Now, there's 4 competencies of assistive technology, but again, let's think of this globally for all kids. Can kids turn on and off, let's say voice typing so they can type into a Google Doc? Yeah, most kids can just turn that on and off, right? How about functional competencies? Can they use their voice to write a sentence? I'm going to guess most kids probably can with a little bit of training. How about strategic competence? Do kids know when they should use voice typing versus a keyboard versus a pencil? So I'm going to use voice typing when I'm at home because I know that there's no one around me and I won't bother anyone. And I'm a poor speller, so it's going to help with my spelling and just generating a bunch of ideas. And then do the kids have the ability in terms of social competencies where can they explain to someone why they need to use voice typing, why they should use that, and it's not cheating over a keyboard. So again, this was developed for assistive technology, but I think we can use this globally. Man, I shared a lot of stuff with you, and it looks like I have to go back to the drawing board and cut more out, and this time cut it out and not add more. But I appreciate your time with me. I know your time is valuable, especially these days. So if you have any comments or questions now, I'm going to stay online for a little bit, or if you have any in the future, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you're interested in any trainings for your districts, let me know. I'd be happy to provide those to you. So I'm going to open up my chat. And again, check out the free online course on Google Calendar. I think you'll find a lot of tips and tricks.
Well, thanks so much, Jen. We appreciate it. I have allowed participants the ability to unmute. If you'd like to ask any questions or interact with Jen directly, please feel free. Also encourage you to check out Jen's handout for lots of clickable resources in there. And if you're interested in bringing Jen or any of her colleagues out to your schools to do some work, I'm sure Jen would be more than excited to join you wherever your school is here in Illinois.
You sure would. Virtually or face-to-face, we do both.
If there are any questions, you can type them in the chat or unmute yourself.
And thanks for sticking around this late. I greatly appreciate it. I know I went over.
It was good stuff.
It's hard to cut. I'm not good at executive function skills and cutting content.
Okay. Well, not seeing anybody taking advantage of the chat or unmuting. So at this time, we will wrap things up. I'd like to remind everyone that the recording will be made available within 24 to 48 hours on our YouTube channel. Please go to YouTube and search for LTC Illinois and subscribe. You can also, for our live participants, you can receive an hour of PD credit. You'll receive an evaluation in your, or a link to an evaluation in your email, also within 24 to 48 hours. Submit that completed evaluation to get your PD evidence of completion. Like to remind everyone to visit ltcillinois.org/events/webinars. / is the one that lives on the key with the question mark. And one last time, Jen, thank you very much for sharing
Thanks
your
for being
expertise
here.
today.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. Being
Thanks.
invited to present. Have a great evening, everyone. Stay safe and warm.